Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Long Gone Loser Rock Show. Today we're going to do a deep dive. Well, I don't know how deep it's going to be really, but I want to talk about it because it's an album that I really dig. And regardless of the subject matter, I just really dig this record. Like, I think it sounds really cool and reminds me of like Jefferson Airplane or something like that. You know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about Coven. Coven's album called Witchcraft destroys minds and reaps souls, or a lot of people just call it Witchcraft. This was their debut album. The album was recorded in February of 1969 and released on June 15th that same year. Some people say that this was the first overly satanic album ever recorded, and there are a lot of debates online that I've read over the years about whether this band hugely influenced Black Sabbath. Now, Black Sabbath have denied that anything to do with this band. This band was from Chicago, obviously Black Sabbath from the UK, but they denied any like association with this band or even knowing who this band was. Some people believe that maybe that was just to distance themselves from all the controversy that this album came with. But who knows? Who knows the story? It's just there's a lot of coincidence in this album to Black Sabbath. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Black Sabbath and I'm not dissing them or giving them any shade or whatever. Black Sabbath are freaking awesome and I think that band just rules. They are quoted as being like the first metal band, right? People say that about Black Sabbath. Coven, though, probably the earliest overly satanic band to come out. I mean, like I said, recorded in 69, but they started in like 66 or something, 67. They were playing shows around that time. And surprisingly, there is a guy in the band named Oz Osborne, and the first song on this album is called Black Sabbath. So, mere coincidence? Maybe. That's what the band says, but who knows? I mean, I'm not going to sit there and tell them that they're wrong, but it just seems like it's pretty, I know, it just seems like it's too much of a coincidence to say that you knew nothing about this band. But who knows? Also, this is before the internet, obviously. How would they have found out about this band? But anyway, this album, it reminds me of like Janis Joplin, Jefferson Airplane, especially that surrealistic pillow. Is that what it's called? That album with the pink cover. I love that record, by the way. Love it so much I can't even remember the name off the top of my head, but I think it's called Surrealistic Pillow. You know the album I'm talking about? It's this one. I found that record for $1 in Banana Records in Florida. But that's not the point. The point is that this album, this is a reissue actually. I got this many years ago. I found it on Amazon super duper cheap. And so I bought it because to try and find a copy of the original was just impossible. You see, that album became a cult classic over years, especially for the black metal crew or whatever. They started really, wanting to get into, the roots of whatever. And that album became a cult classic and very sought after. And so the prices were just going bang. So a unofficial release, I believe this is unofficial, but yeah, Akama Records, 2003, Akama Records. Anyway, this was a reissue. I got it off Amazon, like I said, and it's a really thick hardcover cardboard cover, which I like. It opens up to this, like, I guess, ritual with a naked Jinx. That's her name, the singer. A naked Jinx lying on the altar there with the band doing the devil horns. Now you got to remember, this became popularized by Ronnie James Dio. He didn't invent it, but he definitely became, synonymous with doing that, right? And so this was being done on this album cover in 1969. Now, if you flick through, you get the lyrics, which is kind of cool if you want to sing along. And the last track on side B is a song called The Satanic Mass, which they say was the first recorded satanic mass ever, or any audio ever recorded of a satanic mass. Now, this apparently was written by Bill Trott. That's the producer's name. He apparently wrote this satanic mass. Like I said, I don't know 100% if all of these facts are correct. It's just stuff I've read over the years on the internet. And we all know the internet never lies. But, I'm just telling you what I've read and about this band. So if somebody from the band says, no, 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 that wasn't correct, well, then I'll take your word for it over, you know, whatever the internet says. But Bill Traw apparently wrote this Satanic Mass, and there's this one bit in here where he says, "Kiss the goat," which cracks me up every single time I hear it. But yeah, I mean, there's not many times you're going to listen to the Satanic Mass. You usually stop the record just before it starts, only because it's a 13-minute track and it's kind of boring. Like I said, really hard, thick cardboard cover. Like, it's really good quality too. So there is the back cover, pretty cool. And here is the LP, Karma Records. Now, there's that on that side too. Now, I really like this record. Like I said, it does remind me a lot of like Jefferson Airplane. It also reminds me of the Carrie Nations from the Beyond the Valley of the Dolls soundtrack. This one. Or this one. Whatever one you choose. But the two vocalists that did the Carrie Nations was Lynn Carey and Barbara Robinson. And songs like Come With the Gentle People and whatever on that soundtrack remind me a lot of Coven in just the vocal style and the arrangements and all those sorts of things. The Beyond the Valley of the Dolls soundtrack was from 1970, which was when the Beyond the Valley of the Dolls movie was made. So it does tie in with that sound. Like, they do sound very, very similar. And I like that sound. I do. I mean, it's kind of hippie-ish, but I really dig it. And I have nothing against hippies, by the way. I'm just saying that the sound is very, like, you know, that kind of era of music. But yeah, it's very, very cool. And Coven were just, I remember the first time I put it on and I remember listening to it and just being like blown away. Like, oh my God, like, this is actually really groovy. Like, it's really, really cool. And yeah, I was really into it. So I did, like I said, I mean, I discovered Coven after reading like metal magazines way back in the day and stuff like that. People, you know, these bands would mention Coven as one of their influences or whatever. And so that's how I got into discovering who Coven were. And then I finally got a copy of it on cassette tape. Someone taped it for me. And I was listening to it and I was going, man, this is actually, you know, kind of cool. You know, it's very different. It's not something that you would expect with satanic, you know, lyrics. You would expect it to sound like Venom or Bathory or whatever, you know, Slayer. You don't expect it to sound like this. Radio friendly mainstream music, stuff that you could hear on the radio. Although they probably didn't get much radio play. Coven did get some like minor stuff. Even here in Australia, like one of their singles charted, like One Tin Soldier or whatever it was, charted here in Australia, which is so bizarre to think of. Like, you know, Coven on the radio. But there you go. It happened. So this album caused a lot of controversy just because of things that were happening around the time, like the Manson murders and things like that were all happening. And so this band didn't want to be tied in with that, or the record label didn't want it to be tied in with that. So they pulled the album. And so the album became very sought after and a cult classic. And that's why I said, like, you know, to buy that record was just impossible. You just couldn't get it. And so original copies of that album were just, you know, scarce. But then I have friends like Chris in Chicago, one of my best friends. Dude is an absolute legend. When I went to Chicago last year, I went there over my birthday. So it was like May to June. And we were just, you know, we were having the best week. We just went record shopping every day and just, you know, thrift store shopping and whatever. It was awesome. I had the best week in Chicago with him. And all of a sudden he goes, oh, this is your birthday present. And it's an original pressing of Coven's album. And I was like, what? And he gave me, yeah, an original pressing of the Coven record. And I'm blown away by that. There's your gatefold with the lyrics. There. It's not a booklet form like the other one. It's this one here. Like, it's like a really thick cardboard piece. So, yeah, and then the record is in here. Witchcraft Coven. On Mercury Records, 1969. This copy he gave me, some crackles in there, no scratches though, no jumps. But for 1969, a record that was probably played by stoners and hippies and whatever, I'm surprised that the record is in as good condition as it is. And that's just a shout out, by the way, to Massive Hill, who wrote the song Deadheads. And if you've ever read the lyrics, you'll get that joke. But this record, it sounds great. It sounds so good. And I'm just a huge fan of it. You can see some subtle differences in the cover there. Obviously, between the original and this is the original, this is the reissue, you can see there's a bit of different in the color variation there. Like, this one seems a little bit brighter than this one. So, but yeah, you can see the back covers are different. This one is the reissue. It's got the song titles on the back. This one doesn't. So that's interesting as well. It also has a UPC code, and this one doesn't, obviously, because it's, you know, before that was ever a thing. So Coven's Witchcraft Destroys Minds and Reaps Souls. If you haven't heard this record and you're at all intrigued, I highly recommend you check it out. Like, it's really interesting and I just dig it. Like, it's a really groovy record and the songs are cool. 4 songs on this album were written by Coven as a band, and the others were written, I believe, like, is it Jim Donlinger? He was a like a session guitarist or something. But the rumor is that apparently, I mean, I don't know if it's rumor or if it's fact, but this is what I read online, was that the producer gave him a whole pile of books on witchcraft and said, write an album. And he wrote the album like within a couple of days or something like that. So, and they used 4 songs of the actual band Coven. So there you go. Very, very interesting. One of those songs is a song called For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, which, you know, take the first letter of each word in that song title and you come up with that. But anyway, that song, you know, written years before Van Halen ever used it as an album title. That song's awesome. It's actually one of the best songs on the record. I think that song just rocks. Really, really cool. And there's also Wicked Woman. That's a really, really good song. The song Black Sabbath sounds nothing like the song Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath. Very different song altogether, but still a very cool song. There's also a song, is it the second one on the album? It's got the chanting in the middle of it. Just, you know, rocks out, and then all of a sudden there's this satanic chant, and rocks back out again, and satanic chant, etc. Very cool. But I like it. I like the album as a whole. Regardless of the subject matter, I still think it's a very cool sounding album. So, yeah, you know, I'm not religious at all, so the lyrics mean nothing to me. You know what I mean? I just listen to it and just enjoy it for what it is. You know, I'm mature enough to make my own decisions, as they say. But anyway, Coven's album, yeah, if you've never heard it, I suggest jumping online and checking it out. You know, you never know what you'll find. Maybe turn it backwards and summon up some ragman demons, and Sammy Kerr jumps out of the turntable and starts playing guitar and stuff and whatever. I don't know. Anyway, that's it for this episode of the Long Gone Loser Rock Show, where we talked about Coven's album, Witchcraft, Destroys Minds and Reaps Souls. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, look after each other, and go out and buy some records. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.